The Uganda we want. So mu Uganda gye twagala mu lutalo luno olw'okulwanyisa obulabbayo obukenuzi nze kyempita obuvundu. Munna Uganda alina okuba nga yeenyigiramu.
Ffenna twenyigire mu lutalo.
Ate abalala tebasomye kuzimba wabula bayize okuzimba.
Uganda gye twagala okulaba ng'enguudo zonna nkole nungi, public transport nga weeri.
Kati eno gavumenti eriwo erina akabonero ka Lucifer. Buli kyotunulako mu Uganda kiriko oxygen. Either babika amawulire malungi oba mawulire mabi. Minisita teyeetagisa kabangali budde buno zaki.
At this time, why should somebody import furniture from outside Uganda? Let us leave NRM to be in charge for another 36 years or more.
I really want to see a Uganda that believes in the rule of law. If you have a constitution in place, follow it to the letter. Don't change laws just because you want them to favor you.
Kuba njagala omanye nti obugagga bwonna Uganda bwe yeeyagaliramu buyita waffe ku ttaka lyaffe. Naye busoga mugidibaze.
How can a referral hospital refer you to a private clinic? The Uganda we want buli muntu ateekwa okumanya nti I am a stakeholder, nkwatibwako si kwesuulirayo gwa naggamba.
Uganda oyinza okukakana nga mwe mulina ba graduates aba university nga bangi okusinga Ebungereza. Mwe mufokasinga nnyo ku degree. Eri bo bafokasinga nnyo nti byensomye mbijeemu omulimu n'enkola.
We are dreaming of a Uganda where at a young age there is such a relationship between parent and son, parent and daughter, where the daughter can say this is what I want.
Uganda gye twagala empya tesobola kubeerawo nga tewali mateeka. Amateeka agakola.
The Uganda we want. Welcome to the program, The Uganda we want. My name is Mulanzi Robert. I'm so privileged and honored to be back with this program in today's special edition in this new year. I say new year because yes, we are in the new year. If you don't believe, you better believe it right now. Well, in this program, we talk, we hear from people, Ugandans, people who love this country, people who have been in leadership in this country, many of them in different positions, sharing with us the kind of Uganda that they envision, the kind of Uganda that they want to see. Some of us, when we say just the name Uganda, we feel so passionate. And when we see things around that are not fitting the Uganda that we are talking about, we feel sad and we wish we could right away deal with that issue and things get right. But well, they can't get right away, some of them. But when we hear from people, from leaders of this nation, sharing with us what we need to do, what you as a Ugandan you need to do, and what our leaders, current leaders and even former leaders, what they have to do, I believe that wisdom that we get when it is being implemented, you and I live in a country that we would love to live in. Today in the Uganda we want, we host Dr. Ezra Suruma. Currently is the Chancellor for Makerere University. But of course, he has served and he is still, I believe, a Ugandan economist, a banker, and he was the former Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, a position he held between 2009 till 2009.
Yes.
And he has well served as the senior advisor of the president on finance and economic planning as well. There is one thing when I was reading about him on internet that caught my attention, which was the International Banking magazine in 2008 awarded him as the best finance minister in their award called the Best Finance Minister of Africa Award. And he received that. Well, what an honor, what a privilege, what a joy for me to have Dr. Ezra Suruma sharing with us the kind of Uganda that he envisions. What I have not said, definitely he's going to say it because he's right here with me. Doctor, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I bring greetings to you from Dr. Joseph Serwada and the wife. He's the vision bearer for this program. It started in 2021. He thought that we need to hear from people like you, your perspective, your views on the kind of Uganda that you would love to leave behind for the next generation, and if God allows, that you would also love to live in. We're waiting to hear from you. But first things first, greet us and also let us know, who is Dr. Ezra Suruma?
Thank you very much, Robert. It's a privilege to be able to participate in this program. Thank you very much. And I say hello to all my viewers, our viewers. I was born in Uganda, southwest Uganda, in 1945. My birthday coincides with, I miss this day. That's the end of First World War. In November 11, I believe, 1918. So I was born in November 11, 1945. So usually when I'm celebrating my birthday, the world is celebrating, I miss this day, the end of war. My parents, Suruma'S Badiranwa and Esther Keganiza, were pastors. In those days, they would call them catechists, Abashomesa. My father was Omuruka. That would be a parish
Chief
leader.
or leader?
Well, the parish chief was a government one. There was a parish chief who was secular of the government. But my father was in the Church of Uganda. And he had 6 churches which he looked after in Rwanchere, where I was born, in Kabale district. Then it was called Kigezi district. So that's where I was born. And after some years, he was transferred to Lake Munyonyi, which is a very popular tourist attraction these days. And it's from there that I used to walk to school in Kabale, about 5 miles journey every day.
Every day?
Every day, up and down the hills. It's not plain. So I think my legs became tough from those walks up and down the mountains. I went to 5 primary schools, attended 5 primary schools.
Was it by choice? Or?
Not by choice.
Okay.
I would have to find where I could be accommodated and so on, where I would be sure that I would be safe. But eventually, I ended up at Kigezi High School, which was then I think it was the only secondary school in Kabale, in Kigezi district. That was 1959. And from Kigezi High School, which was a missionary school. In fact, our headmaster, Mr. Lice, who later became a bishop, first bishop of Kigezi, was from Ireland. And from there, I was able to obtain a scholarship to go to King's College, Budo. The headmaster of King's College, Budo, came, was looking for 2 pupils to come on scholarship. I was asked to put my first choice there. I did, and myself and Professor Kabumba, he later became professor. At that time, it was Eric Tuliaji, and the 2 of us came to Budo, studied. So independence found us there.
1962.
1962. I was in, I was the first year. And actually, we were put on a lorry, school lorry, and we came to Kororo airstrip to observe the independence.
Yeah, normally,
celebrations.
Professor, when I host someone who actually attended the independence celebrations live, I'm always tempted to ask, how did you observe? How was the event? What can you say about that occasion? What do you remember?
I remember that it was at night.
It was at night.
Because the handing over, I suppose, had to be at midnight. I suppose. So I remember that we were there at night, but we were able to see, I think there was some lighting. And we saw the prince, I don't remember which prince it was, from the UK, handing over the flag, and I suppose the constitution, the instruments of power. We stood up, and the United Kingdom anthem was played, and then the Uganda anthem was played, and the British flag was lowered, and the Uganda flag was put up, and that was it.
The event ended.
The event ended. We went back on the lorry and went back to Budo, and life continued unchanged. I think out of 20 or so teachers, only 1 was Ugandan. The rest were British at Budo. So life continued. But after a few months, we started to see 1 or 2 Americans coming to teach at Budo also. So for the first time, we were exposed to people from outside, but who were not British. For me, that was now what independence meant, that everything was no longer dominated and completely monopolized by Britain, but others could start coming in. And indeed, American influence started to increase. And after I completed Senior 4 in 1965, I saw advertisements in the Uganda Argus, what you call New Vision today, was called Uganda Argus. And they were advertising for scholarships to go to America. So I applied. We sat an exam, I passed, and I was given a scholarship to go and study in the USA. I never did advanced level.
You never went through A level here in Uganda?
But I was told that if I accepted a position in A level at Budo, and then I got a scholarship, the headmaster would stop me from going. He would say, you have taken a position, you cannot now
change it.
So I put my first choice at Uganda College of Commerce, where I was sure I would be able to live without anybody stopping me. So I went there for a few months, and after that I got a scholarship and went to the USA. I went to Fordham University, which was a Jesuit institution, you know, in New York City, in the Bronx, in New York City. So when I imagined myself coming from the village and ending in New York City at the age of 18 or so, or actually 20, It was a dramatic change. And but something had happened at Kigezi High School that I think was very important in my life. And that is that there was a, what do you call it? We would have evangelists coming to Kigezi High School. And I remember Festo Chivengeri, Bishop, whose photo I have here. He came and had this convention at Kigezi High School, and I gave my life to Christ, accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior. So I believe that that event was very important in my life. It gave me direction. It gave me consistency. So whatever happened, I always knew who I was in Christ. And so going from Uganda to New York City in America at such a very young age was offered possibilities for being led astray. But I thank God that I never lost direction. I knew why I went. I performed very well. In fact, the first term in the university, I was #1 in class, and I was the only black person.
A man from Kigezi.
A man from
Actually, a boy. By then they were calling you a boy. 20.
I was not yet 21.
Yeah.
I was the first #1.
Wow.
And so the sense of direction was very, very important for me. Despite all the attractions and all the amazing things that happened in New York City. And I was, of course, free to go there and to move with the white boys, because there are very few. There are like maybe 4 or 5 black people in the university. The rest were white. But I got along quite well. The Jesuits treated me very well. And during the summertime and the holidays, I would be in school, either at Fordham University, or Columbia University, or New York University, or these were universities in New York City. And I managed to finish my program in 3.5 years instead of 4. When I finished the program, I wanted to do, my mind already had a focus to do a PhD. I remember I saw a book when I was at Uganda College of Commerce in which somebody had put his titles, A.B., B.A., M.A., PhD. And I said in my mind, I must get a PhD. I don't know where it came from, but that became now my aim.
You were aiming at getting a PhD.
A PhD. And sure enough, when I finished my bachelor's in 3.5 years, Fordham University said, we had given you a scholarship for 4 years, so you can continue with the free tuition on your master's. I was admitted to a master's degree. I did it. Then I had a friend, Henry Sendaura. He has now arrested, whom we had been at Voodoo together. He was at the University of Connecticut. And one of the summers, holidays, I went to study at the University of Connecticut. Because in America, you can study at another university and transfer the credits
to another institution.
To your university. And, so you don't have to do all your work. There's a limit to how many courses you can do outside, but that opportunity is there. So while I was at University of Connecticut in summertime with my friend Henry Sendaura, the head of the department said, when you are applying for doctoral work, include us in your application. I said, fine. His name was Professor Snavely. And indeed, I included them in my application. And while I was still working on my master's, I got a call from Professor Alpha Chiang, who had authored a very, very popular book, fundamentals of mathematical economics. Said, would you like a scholarship? I said, yes. He said, you've got it.
Wow. Just like that.
Just like that, very early in the morning. So I moved to the University of Connecticut. I hadn't actually quite finished my bachelor's, my master's, but I went, and while I was completing, I started also on a PhD. And that was in 1971, I believe. Yeah, in September 1971. And I worked on a PhD, ran short of money. I had a family at that time, had an American wife, and we had a child in 1971, and needed money to support my family. So I started, Professor Snavely, one who had brought me, found me a job to teach at one of the colleges in Connecticut. So I started teaching, and later on I moved to Florida and taught there at Florida A&M University. And from there, I moved to Makerere University in 1973 as a lecturer in economics. I was recruited by Professor Chesimira, who was then the dean of the School of Social Sciences. He has since passed on. But he was a great man, very, very, very great Musoga. So I taught Makerere 73. This, of course, is during Idi Amin's time.
Because I was going to ask, how did you manage it to come back to Uganda when those times were not really simple?
This friend of mine, this Henry Sendaura, he was the first one to come. He got his PhD before I did. He was a brilliant man. He's doing engineering, electrical engineering. When he reached Uganda, he said, Ezra, come, let us serve our country. I remember that letter.
Wow.
That he wrote to me.
He used beautiful words.
Yes.
Come and we serve our country.
Come, let us serve our country. So I took it seriously. I applied. I was accepted, and I came and started serving our country. So there were no textbooks. I remember publishing my notes in order to provide the students something to use since there were no textbooks. And the students bought up the notes, and I got some money to use in my international travels. So in 75, I requested Makerere to allow me to go back to complete my PhD. I hadn't yet completed the thesis. I had completed all the other requirements except the dissertation. So 1975, they allowed me to go back. They paid me, they said 3 months. I told them I'd finish. I already had a draft, and I thought I would be able to finish in a very short time. Unfortunately, when I reached the university, they put the draft in the basket, in what do you call it, waste basket.
You had to do it again.
And start afresh. And Makerere cut me off after 3 months, so I had no income. I had savings from what they had been giving me. But by December, I had run out of money. But I had also made tremendous progress with the dissertation. And I thought I would now finish. But one of my, we had 3 advisors, they all had signed that they are satisfied. One of them, Professor Sazama, said, I'm not satisfied. And I looked at him as I'm looking at you. But his eyes were different from yours.
Mine, are they masked?
Yours are black. His were green.
Oh, my goodness.
They are the greenest eyes I've ever seen. And he said, no, I'm not satisfied. And he gave me a bunch of books. He said, go and read this, write another chapter.
You come back.
And I said, but I don't have any resources. I don't have anything. I don't have anywhere to go. How do I continue? He said, that's your problem.
You can figure it out.
Yes. When I walked out of Professor Sazama's office, I contemplated committing suicide. I could not see myself coming back to Uganda without a PhD, which is what had brought me. I had nowhere else to go. I had long lost relationship with my family. My wife had divorced me while I was in Uganda. I said I had deserted her. So now I was alone and on my own.
I'm seeing you in the life of Job. Almost.
Almost.
No. Yeah.
I didn't have any. But something, I don't call it a miracle, happened. When I reached my room in the graduate dormitory, I found a small piece of paper on my pillow. It was a telegram. In those days, we didn't have SMS.
You were using telegram.
We were using telegrams for long distance communication. And the small paper read, "Come, your job is waiting." It was from Florida, from the University of Florida, for Florida A&M University, where I had taught before I went to Makerere. And it was signed by Dr. Sibro Moble, Dean, School of Business and Industry. I had just enough money to put fuel in my little Fiat car and drive down 1,400 miles. And when I arrived there were some 2 other African professors or teachers. One of them took me in to live with him because I had no money for where to live.
You had even put it, for fuel. You have used it for fuel.
Everything had gone into fuel.
Yeah.
She put me up for about a month. And after that, my life normalized. And after about 2 months, I was psychologically, okay. I started to read those books, which the Professor Sazama had given me, and they were actually excellent books. And they made my thesis more balanced because he thought I was too one-sided. I had looked at the capitalist ideology of economic development, but not looked at the socialist or communist aspect of economic development. And he wanted me to have a more balanced view. So looking back, what he was doing was right. But the fact that I was completely financially exhausted made him look...
you couldn't see what he was doing at that time.
Yes, it looks incredibly cruel and unkind. So I finished the PhD in 1976. In April, I finished. But I didn't come back to Uganda until 1979, when President Idi Amin was overthrown. Then I returned as a lecturer, senior lecturer in economics, and continued where I had left off, so to speak. But this time, things had changed. The political environment in Uganda had changed. Although the situation in Idi Amin was bad and violent, when UNLF, Uganda National Liberation Front, of Ugandan forces and Tanzanian forces came and formed the government, there was a great deal of instability and violence in the country. I would be lecturing in Makerere, 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and we hear guns going off in the daytime. And you get reports of people being killed. So the situation was very, very bad. And we wondered, what can we do? What are we going to do? And one day towards the end of 79, one of my later became friends, Joshua Mjenyi, I was told he was giving a lecture, and I went to attend, and he said, he was a political scientist, lecturer, said, we need a third force. We need a third non-sectarian force. Not religious, not a religious party like Democratic Party, UPC, not a tribal party like Kabaka, but a party which combines all the people, unites all the people, includes all the people, so that we work together instead of having what you call sectarian parties. That seemed to make, I was not a political scientist, I was an economist, but it hit me as a brilliant idea. And I joined him, and we formed a party there in Makerere called Uganda National Movement. And we started to meet with businessmen, with students, to see how we could change our country. And a few months later, I heard that Mr. Museveni wanted to meet with us. So we went to his place, and we found all the leading, not all, but many of the leading politicians like Honorable Uganda, the Kategaya, Vidant Sali, and so on. They were gathered there, and we joined them and formed Uganda Patriotic Movement, which contested the elections in 1980 and lost.
UPM.
And we only got one person, Honorable Chionga, to go through to Parliament. But the election was openly rigged because Mr. Mwanga came on TV during the election and said he would be the only one to announce the results of elections. No one else was allowed to announce. So he took over the powers of Electoral Commission. And he announced that UPC had won. And so that was the end of that. And of course, as a result, the history, you know, the UPM went to war, declared war, attacked Kabamba barracks, and then the army came for us in Makerere, for Joshua and myself. But God intervened, and when they came to my apartment in Mitchell Hall, a voice said, "He's not there, he has gone to the office." I don't know why they obeyed that voice. They went back to their trucks and left, and I was able to escape.
That's how you survived.
That's how I survived. So I went back into exile. First I walked to Rwanda. From there I flew to Kenya. From there I went to Germany. From Germany I went back to America and started teaching for 6 years and came back in 1987 to join the central bank. I was Dr. Chionga, became Minister of Finance, the only man who had gone through the elections in 1980. He's now called me, said, "Can you come back and serve your country?" I said, "I'm ready." I was a full professor in America. I had tenure, full life tenure. I was getting a very good salary. I was working on a master's in computer programming at Columbia University, but I left all that behind and came back to serve my country. And I've been here ever since. So I don't know, I think the rest...
Yeah, of course, they say is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah, we are grateful because that's when you managed again to serve as a minister, deputy, bank governor.
From director of research, I became deputy governor. From there, I went to Uganda Commercial Bank as chairman, managing director. I was fighting to keep Uganda Commercial Bank, which was government owned. It was the biggest bank in Uganda. It was owned by the government. And I did not agree with IMF and World Bank that it should be privatized. I thought that it could be restructured and made profitable. And indeed, I left my job as deputy governor and went there to do that. And I did it. And the bank became profitable. But you know what the World Bank said? And they said, now it will fetch a better price. And I was very, very bitterly disappointed. And so they were not sincere in saying that they were privatizing because it was not profitable. Now that it was profitable, why do you want to privatize it? And it had been profitable throughout its life, since it was founded in 1965, except in 1979, when they wrote off buildings in Jinja destroyed during the war with Tanzania. So I was dismissed from Uganda Commercial Bank as its chairman and head because of this war about its privatization. I joined the private sector. After 2 years, I was called back as a Director of Economic Affairs in NRM Secretariat. I was there for 8 years. From there, I became the Minister of Finance and Planning and Economic Development until 2009, when I became a Senior Presidential Advisor, which I still am. Yeah. In between, I was invited to be a Distinguished Visiting Fellow at Brookings Institution in Washington, which is a leading think tank. And that's why I wrote my book on advancing the Ugandan economy. And in 2015, I joined the Prime Minister's office on secondment as the head of Prime Minister's Delivery Unit to improve service delivery in Uganda. And I also became Chancellor of Makerere University in 2016, which I'm now in the process of completing 2 terms in 8 years.
In 8 years.
Yes.
It's good to hear from your background and education and work history, career, Professor. Well, let me go a bit personal here into your life. We want to hear more. You talked about that you were married.
Yes.
And then divorced.
Yes.
Are you still married or not?
I married again in 1992 to Speciosa. So we've since had 3 children together, and we are still married. So we are here.
Wow. And the way I see you, you could be a grandpa. Yeah, you look so. Well, Professor, after hearing from you and after hearing about who is Dr. Ezra Suruma, the question that comes to my mind, when you went to the university in America, what you studied is so much in line with the economy. You as well came back to Uganda, you taught, you've served, and still everything, just a bit of politics and leadership, but majorly you've been so much into the economic journey or line in your leadership. Someone who is watching us and someone who is listening to your voice today would like to hear from you. Which kind of Uganda do you envision? Because you were born before independence, you've lived in the times of independence, and we still have you. But is this the country that you really envision? If not, which kind of Uganda do you want to see?
That's a very, very important question. I like to approach that matter from a historical standpoint. I think it's important for all of us to recognize that Uganda was created by the British Empire or British colonists. They are the ones who said Uganda should be combined with Ankole, with Bunyoro, with Toro, with the West Nile, with Choli, with Lango, with Ateso, with Karamoja, and so on, and they become one country, which they called Uganda. When they came, these various parts were independent kingdoms. Now they, with their power, they put it all together and made us one country. So it's very important for us to know where we have come from. Because if you don't know where you've come from, it may be difficult for you to know who you are. So this is who we are. Of course, it's important also to recognize that we were neighbors anyway. The Langis and the Acholis and the Waganda and the Banyoro and so on, we are all in this region together. We are neighbors. We are not under one king. We are under different kings, authorities, but in the same area. So the British said, now you are all one country. On what basis? On the basis of British force and power. And they started to give us their language, put one police. They had district commissioners who were usually white, controlling the districts. At that time, when we got independence, there were only 17 districts. And usually, in fact, always, the district commissioners were white. The ones, they were British, ruling the country. So now, this is what we have inherited. This is our inheritance. And the question now is, what do we do with this inheritance? Does this constitution, physical constitution of the various tribes and kingdoms, can we live together peacefully? To me, that is the first prerequisite for any other activity, to find a formula for coexisting peacefully. Because we still recognize that there is Buganda, that there is Ankole, that there is Lango.
There's Acholi.
There is Acholi. And indeed, for 20 years, the Acholi attempting to either secede or take over power. So this kind of war is what we want to avoid. And of course, opposite of war is peace. And how do we coexist peacefully? I think this is perhaps the problem we were attempting to solve when we formed the Uganda Patriotic Movement in 1980. We wanted all to come together and rule together. And I believe that we have examples of other countries like Nigeria, where they have a north and a south that are very, very distinct. And they have resolved that they alternate presidents so that the south takes over for a period, then the north takes over for a period. So that way they share power. And I believe that in Uganda, we need to have a similar formula of sharing power, of sharing economic wealth and incomes, and sharing infrastructure, making sure that all the people of Uganda feel that they are equally privileged as citizens. That irrespective of where you are from, you have equal citizenship, and equal access to what the country offers. And I believe that if we can manage to do that, that will help us to live peacefully.
Well, let's stop here for today. And you've heard it from Dr. Ezra Suruma, a Ugandan economist and a banker, a leader, and currently serving as the senior advisor to the president on issues of finance, economic, and planning. And as well, he is the outgoing chancellor for Makerere University. In line with what he has said, how are you going to respond to ensure that we achieve the kind of Uganda we want. My name is Mulanzi Robert. Till we meet again tomorrow with episode 2 with Dr. Ezra Suruma. For now, we say bye-bye. The Uganda we want. So mu Uganda gye twagala mu lutalo luno olw'okulwanyisa obulabbayo obukenuzi nze kyempita obuvundu. Munna Uganda alina okuba nga yeenyigiramu.
Ffenna twenyigire mu lutalo.
Ate abalala tebasomye kuzimba wabula bayize okuzimba.
Uganda gye twagala okulaba ng'enguudo zonna nkole nungi, public transport nga weeri.
Kati eno gavumenti eriwo erina akabonero ka Lucifer. Buli kyotunulako mu Uganda kiriko oxygen. Either babika amawulire malungi oba mawulire mabi. Minisita teyeetaagisa kabangali budde buno. Zaki?
At this time, why should somebody import furniture from outside Uganda? Let us leave NRM to be in charge for another 36 years or more.
I really want to see a Uganda that believes in the rule of law. If you have a constitution in place, follow it to the letter. Don't change laws just because you want them to favor you.
Kuba njagala omanye nti obugagga bwonna Uganda bwe yeeyagaliramu buyita waffe ku ttaka lyaffe. Naye Busoga mugidibaze.
How can a referral hospital refer you to a private clinic? The Uganda we want buli muntu ateekwa okumanya nti I am a stakeholder, nkwatibwako si kwesuulirayo gwa naggamba.
Uganda oyinza okukakana nga mwe muyina bagraduates aba university nga bangi okusinga ebungereza. Mwe mufokasinga nnyo ku degree. Eri bo bafokasinga nnyo nti byensomye mbijeemu omulimu n'enkola.
We are dreaming of a Uganda where at a young age there is such a relationship between parent and son, parent and daughter, where the daughter can say, this is what I want.
Uganda gye twagala empya tesobola kubeerawo nga tewali mateeka. Amateeka agakola.
The Uganda we want.